Hello, I'm Deborah Frances-White and this is Global Pillage Film Club. We are here today to talk about The Big Sick, the movie everyone's been talking about, a romantic comedy of surprising and independent proportions.
Hey, is Pakistan in the house? Really? I would have noticed you.
So what did you think about The Meet Cute? This is an adorable film about a cross-cultural relationship. Sindhu, you've got a cross-cultural relationship.
I do. I have several. One with my husband and 3 with my kids.
Ah,
yeah,
so
very, very cross-cultural.
Your husband is from Denmark?
My husband's a Dane, yes, and I'm an Indian from India. Didn't grow up anywhere else. Grew up in India, so very cross-cultural. And I was saying, I was telling you earlier, but I'll say it now. Cross-cultural is often the term that when I was growing up, it was used. It was code for wrong. So my parents would have friends over, and they'd say, "Oh, how's your daughter?" And they would say, "Well, she had a cross-cultural marriage," and there'd be silence in the room. And so you grew up thinking that's a terrible thing to do. So cross-cultural was code for the wrong kind of marriage.
We only really asked you for one thing, and that's to marry a Muslim.
Well, and I mean, I think my mother, my mother said that. She said, I don't mind what you're saying, but you have to marry. And for Hindus, as parents, you have a sacred duty. It's called Kanyadan, to give your daughter in marriage. So my mother would you're going to let your father die without doing his duties. And then, we have this whole next life thing and karmic debt. And I'd just be sitting there like, oh my God, that's very bad to do that to your father. But it's horrible.
But that's interesting. Not marrying is doing something to your father, which I think I don't know, certainly in my culture growing up in Australia, not marrying wouldn't be an act. It would be a non-act. But that's really interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, also because marriage is so central to our sense of identity as a community. Who you marry, when you marry, how you marry. It's an identity. And then the other thing I felt bad about was, remember when he's dropping off the girl and he says, "I don't think we should talk." The girl he'd met for arranged marriage. I had to have lunch. So this is a more modern setting and it's abroad, like it's in the West. So I used to have lunch and then say yes or no, which I had absolutely. I would say. Negatively.
After one meeting?
One lunch.
And so at the end of lunch, you'd sit there, like a job interview, and at the end of it, you just go, no.
Not to them, or to your parents. Oh my God, okay. To them, you're always like,
I was thinking, but it was like...
And then you got home and your mom was like, yes or no, yes or no. And I knew that, so it's not like the first time, like you've heard your cousins go through it. So you get to give conditions if you're from like a progressive family like I was. So my big thing was, must be taller than me. My mother was like, oh, so demanding. And mustn't have a mustache. And my mother was like, they're not permanent. And I'm like, I know, but I don't want to meet anyone with a mustache to marry. Then she used to always say, if you're a good wife, he'll take it off. So it was on me again. And so I remember one time I met someone who came for lunch. They were my height with a mustache. And I was like, I'm going to kill my mother. But to him, I was like, But I went in the kitchen, I said to my mother, "Mummy, height dekhiye? Have you seen his height? Mooche dekhiye?" And she said to me, you're always so bad-tempered. Little bit mistake. We have this thing in India saying, splitting hairs. It's the 19-20 ka farak. She's like, little bit splitting hairs. I'm like, no, it's directly the opposite of what I asked for. It was very funny though, because when I moved abroad, and again, I really, really, I was just so happy when I saw this, because when I moved abroad and I wasn't living with my parents, they tried to accommodate me. Just like they tried to bring in girls that would have a sense of humor, and the girl had watched the TV shows.
Oh,
and
yes.
So
he likes the X-Files.
Yeah.
The parents always obviously have coached the young woman to watch X-Files so that she can comment on it.
Yeah. And so in my case, it was like, okay, Sindhu suddenly turned very academic, so we'll have to find boys who will be in the same part of America where she's studying, which was a huge thing, And so I'd have these phone calls with these guys. And I mean, I never met them. And my mother would say, so-and-so boy will phone you, be at home in the evening. So I would pick up the phone and the guy say, hi. Now, it's very awkward. It's a phone call, and it's about marriage. And I remember one time, this guy was like, so I'm really very open-minded, so let's talk. I said, okay. He said, so something. He asked me what I was studying. And then I said to him, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? Which I think is a completely reasonable question. Just ice-breaking.
Yeah.
Not like, what's your favorite ice cream? Yes, I'm going to marry you.
It's almost a literal icebreaker ice cream.
Quite literally. And so we had this conversation, and they hung up, and then my mother called me back and said, you have failed. I'm like, what do you mean? And that always felt so bad, actually. I said, what do you mean? She said, ice cream. Ice cream. You will marry him and talk about ice cream. I'm like, dude, calm down. I just wanted to know. And she said, you're immature and stupid behavior. Never mention ice cream. So I was like, note to self, do not bring up ice cream.
Would Kufi be all right?
No, it was just like the guy, apparently the guy's mother said to my mother that your daughter is not very mature. It took, you see, the thing is when you're raised like that and your cousins and have all had arranged marriages and your parents, and you're still living a mainstream Western life, and that's fine, and you're going to more or less marry someone who's sort of roughly the same value set as you. It's such a big leap to say, I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it a totally culturally, alien way.
Yeah. If you've been raised, I suppose, and that's just been
it's
assumed.
not just you, it's like generations, right? And so you don't confront it, and that's exactly right. You don't confront it, you keep making the food, keep smiling, but what will happen, and I think that happened to him, is there will be one person, and that is just your karma, I guess, who will push.
What does that mean?
Karma.
Oh, karma, okay.
Who will push. And that person will make you confront this thing you've been trying to just wave away, which is, what is love? And if I marry for love, am I making a mistake because I'm doing something that no one in my family can understand? That we associate with a very different culture, and we think marriages fail in those cultures, basically. What is love? And that risk. I mean, I always used to think if I get married to who my mother wants and it doesn't work, I'll come home and I will berate her. It was never on me. But when I decided to marry for myself, one of the things I remember thinking was,
big decision.
This is on me, which is not something we ever have to worry about. Like you guys are like, oh, what if I marry the wrong person? And we were like, I'll get married, my mother will pick, it'll be fine. And then when you marry yourself, you're like, this is on me, I don't want to mess it up.
And you have the full responsibility. And then your mother can say to you, see, I told you, you don't marry for love.
But yes, although her interest, of course, is to make sure it works.
So regardless of what, once you're married.
No. Once for my mother, my husband is a god because he agreed to marry me. I mean, seriously, my marriage is by far the biggest achievement of my mother's life. By far. Do you know what I'm saying? And obviously, when you fall in love, you sort of fight for this thing. But when you have an arranged marriage, you are predisposed to. We were raised to love our husbands, however they came about into our life. Literally, that's how my mother raised us, and that's how my cousins were raised. So we had all these hugely romantic notions. Now imagine the plight. Imagine the plight of my first Western boyfriend, who I thought I loved and therefore was going to marry. And he was like, this is a nice date in university. No. I mean, the guy had PTSD for years. I tried to hook up with him.
In the film, Kumail's parents are really only open
and of course I think
to him marrying
what's
a
different
Muslim
for
woman
them
that they've had a hand in choosing, really.
Yes, and I think what's different for this is that they're part of the diaspora.
Yeah,
and any diaspora kind of hunches down like this.
Do you think they're trying to keep their identity?
You have to, and that's how diasporas work. I am probably a little bit more worried about my kids' Indian identity than my parents ever were about mine, because we're living in India.
Right.
What's the worry? So like when I make the kids go through certain Indian rituals, my mother's like, what are you wasting everyone's time? Please put the poor children alone. What's your problem? I'm like, dude, I'm making them Indian. She's like, stupid. Don't do. Come. Like she totally disses me on it. You know what I mean? But I think I do it because
you want them to feel Indian because they're not being raised
like
in
India.
Yeah. I really related to that part of the movie where the family will cut you off because I was from a very extreme religion. I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, and the punishment for leaving is shunning. So I remember that, and I remember having to do it to people where I would see a friend in the street, and you just have to turn away. So I mean, literally now, say shunning. We were best friends. We were both Jehovah's Witnesses. Your sister Cindy, Sister Sindhu.
Cindy. No, I want to be Sister Cindy.
Do you want to be Sister Cindy? You'd prefer that?
I do.
You're Sister Sindhu. I'm Sister Deborah. And then I get disfellowshipped, and then say I come sit next to you in a cafe and I realise it's you. You guys are chatting, you would just have to turn away like I'm dead, like this. Just do it. Like this. That still hurts, guys.
That's
it
terrible,
still hurts.
but that's terrible. Yeah, but
it still hurts. That's got me right there. That's what they do, genuinely. And I used to have to do it to other people as well. So I really felt that part. What did your mother say when you said you weren't going to marry?
Oh, she cried and said, I'm a failure, and what did I do? And 9 months I kept you in my uterus only to hear these things. The whole 9 yards. And this and that, in my next life I'll come back like this, I have so much debt, and it's all your father's fault. Which, by the way, comes up for everything. No matter what happens, you'd be like, blah, blah, the coffee broke, blah, blah, blah. It's your father's fault. Blah, blah, blah. So I did all that stuff. And then she said to me, are you sure? And I started working, and she was very happy for me that I didn't become a philosophy professor, that I had a mainstream job. She was happy. So she said, okay. But she wept. I mean, she really was. And of course, she asked me, are you lesbian? I'm like, nope, I'm not lesbian. No. And so she was like, it doesn't matter. You can be Mrs. and Mrs. I don't mind. I'm like, I'm not lesbian. And what is Mrs. and Mrs.? She said, because if you're with the lesbian. I said, no, it's fine.
So she was saying, I would be happy.
Just get married. I don't mind if you're Mrs.
woman.
and Mrs.
Really?
Yeah,
I never heard anything so absurd in my life. Mrs. and Mrs. I'm like, do you really think that's how it works? But anyway, I was like, no, she couldn't understand. And at that point, it became such a trauma for them. And the other thing about our families is our kids don't really grow up until they're married. Then they start their own families. So you have these children, you know? Like this idea that you'll go off and travel and my kid will be that age and I'm like, no, but you didn't ask me. You didn't say how I felt. And that's what she says, his mom, we did this for you. There's one other thing that I thought this movie brought out very well, and it really resonated with me is, you know, for Emily, when she says to him, you're looking at these other girls, and what about me? What about me? And Western liaisons have this huge quality of which crashes when you as a participant have this arranged marriage story, which is the person you really like says, you're picking that way because I'm not good enough.
Right.
And it's like, it's got nothing to do with you. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got everything to do with where I'm coming from, my family. And when I heard her say that, I was reminded of how we don't marry just for ourselves. We bring our family, our religion, our culture. We bring all of that with us. So when she was standing there and she was like, but am I not good enough? I thought, your worldview about how marriage works is like this. Ours is like this. We have all this stuff to consider. You just have to consider, do I like you and do you like me? And that's what I wanted to, I literally didn't want to say it because obviously it's a screen and I want to say it's not about you, which is one of those things you can't explain. It's not a cop-out when someone says that.
The other theme in this movie is his parents disapproving of his comedy career, which is also so much fun.
Well, I mean, that is just completely universal. I don't think there is a culture, a group in history that wants their children to become a comedian. Nobody's like, I want doctor, lawyer, or comedian, one of the three.
It's
and
so
they're
true.
set for life.
That is a way the movie is relatable across every culture in the world. My mother, said to me, not long ago, I never know what to say when people say, what do you do, darling? So I just say that you're a writer. And I said, well, comedian's an easy one to remember, isn't it? And she said, yes, darling, but I'm trying to impress people. She actually said that to me with no irony. And I said, fair enough. Yeah, no, I get it. She sometimes, if I'm feeling down, says, well, I told you should have studied law. You missed a golden opportunity. And I'm like, thank you, mother. Thank you for the
No, I think
the
exactly.
lift. And I sometimes think that. I sometimes think I should have been a human rights lawyer. Do you ever think I'm wasting my life being a comedian?
No, because, you know, I had a career previously.
Okay, and you gave it up because you realised it was terrible.
No, I had a career and I gave it up because that career meant I could never be with the kids. And I thought, well, that's rubbish. But I will tell you that back in the day when I was at university and I wanted to study, I didn't want to do a hard subject like economics. I wanted to do philosophy. It was a scandal. Oh my God. One of my cousins is he's a neurologist at Harvard. Okay, it's like that kind of Indian, I mean, come on, math. And I was like, I want to do philosophy. And my mother called me and said, very good, because I'm so easy to get married, you can only be a housewife. That's literally what she said to me. I was like, okay. So I thought, okay, that's good. I can study what I want to make my marriage easier. My father, he didn't speak to me for 6 weeks. He said, you're wasting your life. That was for philosophy degree at university.
So you weren't going to become a beat poet at this point. You were going to university. You were going to do a degree.
I was going to do hermeneutics. Like I was doing this real like big philosophy stuff. But anyway, I didn't. I did end up doing political theory, and then I got this job, which was a hardcore mainstream job, and it was fine. But when I wanted to go into comedy, my mother, marriage is so central to South Asian culture. You see what I mean? You're either trying to get married, trying to remain married, trying not to become unmarried. And then you die. One of the things that makes this movie very real is that he's doing the job he does normally, which is stand-up. The way they meet is not uncommon in stand-up.
She woohoos. That's something he says.
But I mean,
She
I guess
doesn't really heckle, but he accuses her of heckling.
no, but like for me it was like they meet at the club
But
afterwards.
also he's
Right.
clearly doing the same line, the same thing
yeah,
he
and
does.
the writing, the
He
thing.
writes her name down in
Yeah.
Urdu. Did you ever do that?
Not in
Sindhu?
Urdu, but in Hindi,
Yeah.
And I mean, I would give like major seductive Indian eyes like this, and then take their hand and then write it on their palm.
I used to.
Oh my God! Just go right in for that, And it was so awful. Once I remember doing that. My friend who was with me, who was visiting from Delhi, she said to me afterwards, "How do they not understand you are a fraud? Like, what do you mean?" She's like, "How?" I'm like, "They have no idea. It's very cool." And then you do it here, and of course, a young man would be like, "Wow," and go completely crazy, and you could do what you wanted. But the other thing about the movie, with the way what is it, meet cute?
Meet cute.
Meet cute. Oh, the meet cute. Oh,
Yeah,
the
so you meet and it's cute.
So,
Meet cute.
it's not like
that I
you
really
meet.
liked was, I think, that it is having a sense of humor that helps him keep these dichotomies from making him bitter at all, and from making that time when he's with the parents palatable, and for going to the dinner at his parents' house. Because I still remember when I was getting to be 24 and 25, and this thing of Sindhu's not getting married was starting to reverberate through my life and my family, and I would always turn to humor, and I would always make a joke. And I felt, and it might be completely disconnected, if he was in a corporate job or this or that, he wouldn't have those deflection mechanisms that as a stand-up he very much brought to the table. Like when he tries to patch up with them, my heart broke so much when he
I
bought
know.
those signs. It's just a device to say how you think, I'm not going to leave you. And yet your mother rolls up the window. She does give you food. I swear to God, that is such a South Asian thing. Like, if your mother's going to shoot you, she'll give you a good meal and then shoot you. That's just how it goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the stand-up part is so
I think
integral.
You can tell it's been written by somebody who has to stand on stage, and if their jokes aren't funny, they know immediately. Not some just writers out in a room who don't care. No, you can tell it's been written by a comedian.
Yeah.
That's another big theme of the film, is dating the in-laws, and being left alone with your partners or your boyfriends or girlfriends' parents. Sindhu, your in-laws presumably are Danish.
Yes.
How do you get on with them?
Well, very well. And I think, here's the thing. When you arrange people's marriages, I know this wasn't arranged, one of the things that you always look at when you're arranging your daughter's marriage or your son's is what I have told you in the past, the values of the family. And we come from a very educated, like an education-heavy professional family, women and men. So my parents always said, we have to find a family in which at least the grandparents also were very well educated. I say this because my in-laws are both very well educated. They're both very high achieving doctors in their fields in Denmark. The reason I'm telling you that is they came to the whole thing so cosmopolitan and open-minded that, I could have been from anywhere. Also, my husband is an only child, so as far as his mother is concerned, no offense, but he could have brought home a donkey and said, "This is my wife," and she'd have said, "Oh, what a lovely donkey wife."
Do you think that's
He's perfect to her.
Do you think that's the way round it is? I would have always thought that the mother. I'd think in England that if there was an only child who was a girl, the mother, no one would be good enough. For the boy, sorry.
No.
for the boy,
My
one would be good enough.
my mother-in-law has it like she just my.
Whatever he
Whatever,
wants.
whatever
just
he
perfect.
likes is.
And also
like
they're
mine.
Danish, so they're not that kind of Indian intrusive. You're doing this wrong, critical. That they're not like that. They have a totally different model of parenting. Everything that we consider like really good quality parenting, they think is abuse. So it's kind of they literally. So I get along with them.
If you raised your children the way you were raised, your Danish parents-in-law would call the authorities, basically.
100%.
They would be horrified.
No, they would call the authorities. They would not be horrified. They'd be like, "This is not correct, and now you must go to jail."
That is, it's a lot.
That's it.
In the film, it is actually with Emily's parents. They are so. They have kind of one small kind of racial faux pas. And I'm not going to say the joke. The funniest joke
it's the
in the
best
film.
joke in the
but
film.
It's such a good joke.
Gonna,
Let's not
Such a
spoil
good
it.
joke, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a really good joke.
But
They're
they
essentially
don't,
liberal
they do
people.
not care at all. She's from the mother's from the south, and she says that it was impossible for her parents to get on board with the fact that she was marrying a New Yorker.
who was like a geek and
Yeah,
they're
he was
from
a
an Air
nerd
Force
and they're
family.
from
No, and I think that's absolutely right. And this is also one thing I've now realized after being married so many years, is that to make marriage work, whether you come through it as from an arranged point of view or from a love point of view, you have to want to make it work. And obviously when you fall in love, you sort of fight for this thing. I realized that the way my mother dealt with the fact that Jakob was so different was complete denial. She was like, no, this is an Indian son-in-law. So I'm just going to behave exactly like I would. And kudos to my husband, who was like, this is so surreal, but okay, fine. But what I love, and this is one thing I love about the Western world when it comes to love, is that the parents of Emily were like, she just has to like you. Just you, who you are, that heart, who you are. There's none of that, where you're coming from, who, what's your background, what kind of cultural values, religious values will you bring? You guys don't worry about it at all. And that's very liberating for individuals. You know what I mean?
It sounds like you don't really approve of it, though.
No. I am reaping the benefits of it.
So this is Global Pillage game now. In Hungary, they say, "I'm going to watch a house fire." What does that mean?
They're going to watch like people arguing and fighting, like some kind of big family fracas.
It means you're going to meet your boyfriend's or girlfriend's parents.
Well, close enough. Family
Going to
fracas
meet
right there.
It means you're going to meet your future in-laws. But you know why? You think it's, a house fire, it's going to kick off. No, it's because it used to be that you'd want to go and see how big the hearth was. How big is their fireplace? So I'm going to check out the diary, basically.
That's like what my mother says. I want to see their financial status. She would openly say that. I want to see financial status of this boy's family.
You've got a girlfriend now, Ned, but you wouldn't introduce her to your family or me for like 6 months.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Why?
Well, it's not that I'm embarrassed of you, Deborah, or my family.
It's clear that you are.
Because it's a big deal. It is a big deal. I live at home as well, so it was really quite awkward having to kind of manufacture ways in which she wouldn't meet my parents for literally 6 months of the relationship. But it is a huge deal, even though if my mum was to write down somebody, I should probably not say this on tape, but if my mum was to write down somebody she'd want me to marry, it would probably fit quite well into what my girlfriend is like.
Well, that's the other fear, isn't it? If you bring someone home appropriate and then everybody goes... if you bring home someone that your family thinks is appropriate and then they start saying, great, when are you going to marry her? And then you're thinking there's this opposite pressure. So The Big Sick is in cinemas nationwide from July 28th. Go and see it. If you'd like to find out more about it or where to see it, it is at thebigsick.co.uk.
They're just blowing in the breeze. Why, honey? Why?
This is Zubeda. For your files, your X-Files. That's your favorite show, huh? The truth is out there.